Carter Evans joins us now. He's been reporting from Sarasota. Carter, we see the winds behind you.
It is getting windy, that's for sure. I'm using the phone to hear you because some of our equipment has gone out because we got it wet earlier. We've had the power go out about 5 or 6 times tonight, but it keeps coming back on. We've been lucky so far. It's quite windy right now, but still, we're just now kind of getting to those hurricane force gusts of about 75 miles per hour. We've got a long way to go. We're in Sarasota by Sarasota Bay, and one of the big concerns out here, and I know you've been talking about it, is that storm surge. And it wasn't like something that happened very quickly. The storm, as it was approaching, drew all that water out of the bay, and we're expecting it to come back in as the storm gets closer, but it still hasn't arrived yet. So that's something that's going to come as the storm approaches us. Rena?
Carter, exactly where are you? DeMarco here now. Where exactly are you in Sarasota?
Okay, so I'm about 2 blocks off of the bay right now. We chose this place because of the elevation. We're actually on a little hill. We are almost 20 feet above sea level right here, so we figured we'd be pretty safe from the storm surge. That's not the case about a block away. There's a park, there are some apartment buildings, and if it comes as expected, which is about 8 feet, a lot of those, at least to some extent, will be underwater. We've already seen some streets downtown that are flooding, though they say that is pretty common during a heavy rain down here. There's a lot of water around here. Although combine that with the high tide that we're going to experience in the middle of the night tonight at the peak of the storm, and that's just a recipe for trouble with this storm surge.
And I'm sure it's a ghost town, especially being that a curfew is in place. Have you got a chance to speak with anyone who chose to stick around and sort of ride the storm out?
Several people, actually, and most of them were living in high-rises, and that's why they chose to stick around. It really is like a ghost town around here. And when we were driving around earlier today, it was a surprise if you saw another car or two on the road in a half an hour. A lot of people are hunkering down. But when we were driving back from our location earlier today, about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock this evening, you know, we could see people inside their apartments in apartment buildings with their TVs on, at least while they still have power. So it appears that those people are the ones riding out the storm. The homes that we drove by in the low-lying areas, those are boarded up and empty with no lights on, and it looks like people heeded those evacuation warnings.
Yeah, we are hearing lots of reports on social media about people losing power in the Sarasota and Tampa area. We're also hearing about manatees, the animals that are now, because it's become this tide has gone well back and away, and it's expected to rush right in. What's the situation been like when you've seen with the sea life in particular, Carter? Have you had a chance to experience anything like that, and what are people saying about evacuating?
You know, we really haven't seen a whole lot of sea life. We saw a couple of birds taking shelter, but for the most part, we haven't seen that much. But I can imagine that this was a significant change for the bay. I didn't have the benefit of seeing the bay at a full high tide before. I could kind of tell where you could look at the tide lines. From what I could tell, it looked like it had receded 3 or 4 feet in some areas, and that was significant. We were talking to people who lived along the bay. They told us they'd lived here for 20, some 35 years, say they've never seen anything like this before. So it was very interesting. Now, a lot of people wanted to take the opportunity to walk out there and check it out. Not necessarily a safe thing to do. Although this is not necessarily like a tsunami where it recedes and then comes back very quickly. When it does come back, it will come back quickly, but it's going to be when the hurricane gets to a little closer to us, at least the eye does.
And Carter, the conditions there are still pretty crazy. Earlier when we saw you in the live shot, you were being pushed around with the wind. You were pretty much trying to stand up against it, and it was tough for you. What are your plans when it comes to sheltering there for you and the crew? Have you guys seen the worst of it?
I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet at all. Let's zoom out a little bit, Scott, and we'll show them what we're looking at. They're curious to see what our situation is. We have rented a home on Airbnb. We've actually rented a couple of buildings to keep the crew safe. And I'm standing in an area that's protected by 2 buildings on either side right now, and that's why you don't see me blowing in a lot of wind. There is significant wind blowing behind me. I mean, you can see that rain out there. Those are probably 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, and it's going to get a lot higher tonight when we get to that hurricane force wind at 75 miles per hour, and we're still expecting gusts up to 100 miles per hour tonight. I don't know if you can hear that up there. You hear that sound, metal on concrete? That's a chimney cap right now that is just about to blow off one of the buildings where we're staying.
Wow, be careful out there, because we were talking about
keeping an eye on that one.
The strong winds out there, and one of the photographers actually that I worked with last week, Carter, said it's not exactly the wind that kills you, it's what's in the wind, and that's talking about the debris that's flying pretty much everywhere.
And that's one thing that, you know, we pay close attention to when we choose to stand outside. We spent a lot of time deciding where we were going to do our live shots from. We came in here a day ahead of time and looking for a good spot. And we chose this spot for a reason. And I'm only standing out here now because it is safe and because we've determined that there is really not enough debris that can fly in the wind here. Of course, there's something that could come off of one of these buildings, but it's not like we're standing out in the open right now. And again, when this hurricane hits full force tonight around 11 o'clock midnight tonight, we're not going outside at all.
That's great to hear, Carter. We're also getting word that Sarasota County is saying that all EMS, fire, and sheriff services have been suspended, and they're also, just within the past 10 minutes, issuing a warning to Venice in that Sarasota area: boil your water, because there has been damage to a water main in Venice, and now the city is under a boil water notice until further notice. Carter, we want to thank you and let you get back into shelter as safety.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us.
Glad you're doing well, too. Good reporting out there, too, man.
Sure. Thanks, guys.